The sky was dark. Thunder rolled in the distance. Rain poured over the red hills of planet Dravis. A human soldier named Cade moved carefully through the rocky jungle, holding his rifle close. He was alone, set on a supply scan mission. Most soldiers hated this job. It was quiet, boring, and full of dangerous creatures. But tonight was different. Cade's boots stopped suddenly as the ground shook beneath him. A low rumble passed through the air. Then, with a loud boom, something fell from the sky and hit the ground not far from him. It wasn't an attack. It was a crater. He ran toward it. Smoke rose from the middle of a smashed hill. The earth had opened up like a wound. The smell was strange burnt metal, but also something alive. Cade raised his light and looked inside the crater. There it was. A small creature, barely the size of a cat, was lying in the center. Its body was shaking. Thin, bony arms. Tail curled around its body. Its skin was dark green, but it glowed slightly under the rain. One of its eyes opened. It was red. Deep red like burning coal. Cade's training told him to shoot. He had seen images of creatures like this in the Army's database. Voran spawnlings, they were called. Dangerous, wild, unstable. Kill it before it grows, the files had said. But Cade didn't move. The tiny creature looked up at him, shaking from the cold, rain dripping off its fur. It didn't growl. It didn't hiss. It just whimpered. A small broken sound, like a scared puppy. Cade lowered his rifle. "No," he whispered. "I won't kill something that's crying for help." Back at camp, other soldiers saw the small bundle in his bag. "What the hell is that, Cade?" one man asked, pulling back the flap. Cade moved in quickly and closed the bag. "It's injured. I found it near the crater." "You brought that thing here? Are you crazy?" Another soldier laughed nervously. "That's not a pet. That's a future killer. I'm not keeping it here," Cade said. "Just until it heals. Then I'll release it in the jungle." "No, man. Command finds out, you're done." Cade ignored them. He packed food, supplies, and a blanket. That night, he snuck out of the camp with the small creature hidden under his coat. He reached an abandoned storage hut deep in the jungle. It was quiet. No cameras, no patrols. He laid the creature on the blanket. Its eyes opened slowly. It was still weak, but it looked up at him. Its head tilted. Cade handed it some crushed food pellets. It sniffed, then ate slowly, carefully, like it didn't trust him yet. Cade watched it in silence. "You're smarter than they think, aren't you?" The creature finished eating. Then something strange happened. It crawled forward and licked Cade's hand. The soldier froze. "Why would you?" The creature leaned closer and placed its tiny head on his arm. It made that soft sound again, the same broken whimper. Cade sighed. "You're just a baby." Later that night, Cade woke suddenly. His arm was burning. He looked down and saw the creature biting his arm lightly, its small teeth barely breaking the skin. "Hey," he said, pulling back. "What are you doing?" The creature stared at the blood, then did something that froze Cade's heart. It began to lick the blood. Slowly, and its eyes started to glow brighter. Its body trembled. Its tiny limbs stretched. Just a little. Its claws sharpened. Cade backed away. What the hell was that? The creature blinked, curled up, and went back to sleep. By morning, it was bigger. Not by much, but its limbs looked stronger. Its voice deeper when it made those soft cries. Cade stepped outside the hut. He wasn't sure what he was doing anymore. This wasn't a dog. It wasn't a baby. It was something else. But he also knew one thing. It trusted him. And now, it had tasted his blood. What have I done? He whispered to himself. High above, hidden in the trees, a pair of glowing yellow eyes watched him. An alien scout, covered in leaves, whispered into a small communicator. The human has found a Vorak pup. He's feeding it, protecting it. The voice on the other end hissed, "Keep watching. If he keeps it alive, The jungle will burn. Asterisk Vorak screamed in his sleep. It was a strange sound. A mix between a growl and a cry. Cade jumped awake inside the old jungle hut, sweat on his forehead. The little creature tossed and turned in the corner, caught in a nightmare. His body twitched. His claws dug into the wooden floor. Cade slowly walked over. Hey. You're safe now. Vorak's glowing red eyes opened. He looked around, breathing fast like he had just escaped something terrible. Cade knelt beside him and reached out. It's okay, boy. For a moment, Cade expected the creature to bite again. But instead, Vorak pressed his head gently against Cade's palm. He made a low purring sound, deep in his chest. Cade whispered to himself, "What are you?" 3 days passed. The jungle outside was full of dangers, giant snakes, plasma wasps, and worse. But inside the hut, a bond was forming. Cade brought meat and water from the camp in secret. He taught Vorak basic words. Sit, quiet, stay. Surprisingly, Vorak learned fast. He copied Cade's movements. He listened. He even tried to mimic Cade's breathing when the soldier medit. But with each passing day, Vorak grew. His legs became strong, his tail thicker, his voice deeper, and his eyes. They burned like fire in the dark. One afternoon, as Cade returned with supplies, he heard a strange noise, a scream. He dropped the bag and rushed inside. A poison fang crawler, a giant centipede-like beast, had crept into the hut. It was fast. Venom dripped from its fangs. It lunged at Vorak. But Vorak didn't run. He leapt, midair, like a blur of green lightning, and ripped the crawler in half with his teeth. Cade stood frozen. The creature dropped the bloody crawler at Cade's feet. Like a gift, Vorak tilted his head, waiting for something. Praise. Approval. Cade took a slow breath and knelt. You protected me? Vorak blinked, then gave a soft grunt, almost proud. But danger wasn't over. Far beyond the jungle, back at the base, rumors had started. A guard had seen Cade entering the jungle at night. Another swore they saw something glowing in the trees. What is he hiding? The captain asked. A spy drone was released, silent, fast, invisible to the eye. It began to follow Cade. Back in the jungle, Cade built traps and trained Vorak to avoid them. He used old military tricks. Vorak was no longer just a creature. He was becoming a hunter. They ran through the trees. They learned from each other. They trusted one another like soldiers in battle. But Cade began to worry. This was no longer a baby. It was becoming something powerful, something deadly. And then something happened that changed everything. Late that night, Vorak sat at the edge of the hut, staring at the moon. Cade sat beside him. I should be scared of you, Cade said softly. But I'm not. Vorak didn't reply. He just kept watching the moon. His tail moved slowly behind him. I don't know if you're a weapon or a miracle. Just then a voice came from the trees. You should have killed it when you had the chance. Cade stood and aimed his gun. Out stepped a tall alien woman dressed in bone armor, glowing tattoos across her arms. Her eyes sharp like blades. She was a hunter. A scout from the Xolkai tribe. Step away from the beast, she warned. It's not your pet. It's a Vorak. Cade kept his gun ready. I know exactly what he is. She narrowed her eyes. No. You don't. That creature is part of a dying bloodline. They were kings of war. Now they're just monsters. Vorak stood tall beside Cade, growling low. You made it stronger, she said. You fed it human blood. Now it's changing. Growing faster than it should. Soon, even you won't control it. Cade didn't move. He trusts me. He's not what you think. She didn't argue. She only smiled coldly. Then let's see how loyal he is. When the princess comes to kill him. She sharpened her blade with a bone from her last kill. Princess Sayari of the Gel Kai tribe sat on a high stone chair, surrounded by firelight and jungle drums. Her armor was made of scales, her long black hair tied with beads of teeth from hunted beasts. The crowd around her danced and sang. Warriors painted in red and white colors chanted praises to her name, but Sayari did not smile. She had just received a report from a scout. A Vorak lives, and worse. It listens to a human. The news was impossible. Vorak beasts were wild terrors of the ancient wars. No one controlled them, not even their own kind. They were born in fire, raised in blood, and always killed their trainers. Sayari had studied them since she was young. Her ancestors told stories of villages destroyed by just one adult Vorak. Now, a human soldier had one as a companion. He feeds it, trains it, talks to it, the scout had said. Sayari single quotes his fingers clenched around the bone blade. This cannot be allowed. That night, she met with the elders of the Jalkai, old warriors, silent hunters. Each one had killed monsters bigger than tents. The Vorak must die. One elder said. Another added, and the human too. Anyone who sides with the old beasts is a threat to the jungle. Sayari nodded. I will deal with them myself. But Princess, an old woman spoke. You know the law. If the Vorak shows signs of loyalty, if it shows love. Sayari cut her off sharply. Love is weakness. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle. Cade was building a new shelter for Vorak. The creature had grown again, now the size of a lion, with thick shoulders and glowing red eyes that seemed to see through the night. But something was different. Vorak was restless. He sniffed the air often. He paced. His growl was low and constant. What's wrong, buddy? Cade asked, handing him a roasted animal leg. Vorak didn't eat. He just stared into the trees. Suddenly, he growled a deep, thunder-like warning. And then, Sayari stepped out of the shadows. She moved like a panther, silent, controlled. Cade raised his gun fast. Stop right there. She didn't flinch. Her eyes went straight to Vorak. You're hiding him, she said calmly. Do you even know what that thing is? Cade stepped in front of Vorak. His name is Vorak. And he's not a thing. Sayari tilted her head. He doesn't belong to you. He chose me. She narrowed her eyes. He'll kill you one day. Then I'll take that risk. Suddenly, Sayari pulled out a bone whistle and blew into it, silent to human ears. But Vorak roared in pain. He stumbled, claws digging into the ground. Cade ran to him. What did you do? Sayari watched, cold and still. This is a hunter's call. Vorak blood cannot ignore it. You may have trained him, but he is still what he was born to be. Vorak's body trembled, eyes glowing too bright, muscles twitching. Then, he turned and charged at Sayari. Cade shouted, No! But just before striking, Vorak stopped. He stood tall in front of Sayari, eyes burning, breath heavy. Sayari looked up at the beast in silence. Vorak bent his head down and licked her hand. She didn't pull back, for the first time in her life. Sayari looked confused. Cade walked up beside them. He didn't attack you. You thought he would. Sayari stared at Vorak, breathing slowly. He's changing, she whispered. No, Cade said. He already changed. You just refused to see it. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then Sayari turned to Cade. If he is truly loyal, if he's truly more than just a beast, then you have no idea what you've created. Cade raised an eyebrow. Why? Sayari looked up at the stars. Because the jungle listens to the Vorak, always has. And now, he has chosen you. She walked into the trees, vanishing into the shadows. Vorak looked at Cade with sharp eyes. And then, he roared, not in anger, not in fear, but in command. Birds flew. The jungle went silent. And far, far away something else woke up. Asterisk, she had never hesitated before. Princess Sayari had hunted creatures with 10 eyes and poisoned blood. She had stabbed beasts while they slept and wrestled monsters in the rain. But now, her hands would not move. The Vorak stood in front of her silent. Massive, watching. Not attacking. Not afraid. Just waiting. Cade stood beside him, breathing heavy. He could have ripped you apart. Sayari's voice was flat. Then why didn't he? They stared at each other in the moonlit jungle. The torchlight danced on Vorak's thick hide. His eyes were like twin flames. His body twitched with muscle and power, but he stood still, calm, controlled. Sayari slowly circled him, blade in hand. You trained a monster, she said. Cade shook his head. He's not a monster. Then what is he? Cade looked at Vorak and smiled. He's my friend. Sayari laughed quietly, but it wasn't real joy. The last man who called a Vorak his friend was eaten alive in his sleep. Suddenly, Sayari lunged. Her blade moved like lightning, aiming for Cade's chest. But Vorak moved faster. He leapt between them with a roar so loud the trees shook. His claws slammed into the ground. Dirt exploded under him. His eyes burned as he growled at Sayari. Cade stumbled back, wide-eyed. Vorak, stop! Sayari stood still, blade frozen inches from the beast's nose. For a second, just a second, Vorak looked ready to attack. But then, his eyes dropped. He turned his back to her. And went to Cade. He licked the man's hand gently, then stood protectively in front of him. Sayari lowered her weapon slowly. Her heart was pounding. He protected you, Cade nodded. I told you. She watched Vorak in silence. That's not just training. That's loyalty. But Sayari wasn't the only one watching. Up in the trees, dozens of glowing yellow eyes blinked. Hunters. HFY warriors. They had followed the princess, hidden in the shadows. One of them whispered into a communicator. He obeys the human. It's true. Another hissed. Then the old stories were right. A Vorak with loyalty is unstoppable. Back on the jungle floor, Sayari sighed deeply. The tribe won't accept this. They will come for him, Cade frowned. He hasn't hurt anyone. Sayari looked him in the eyes. That doesn't matter. They fear what he might become. Vorak growled again, facing the trees. Cade whispered, he senses them. Sayari narrowed her eyes. Then we need to run. Suddenly, a spear flew through the trees. Vorak spun and caught it in his jaws. A second later, 5 Jalkai hunters dropped from the branches, weapons drawn. Sayari stepped forward. Stop, he's under my watch now. One of the warriors hissed. He's a Vorak. That thing belongs to death, not protection. The air was tense. Weapons ready. Vorak's growl grew louder. Cade stepped in front of him. You'll have to go through me. The warriors laughed, but Sayari didn't. She raised her hand. Enough. Princess, one said. You were sent to kill the beast. Sayari looked at Vorak. Then back at them. I changed my mind. The warriors raised their spears. Vorak crouched low, ready to spring. But Sayari stepped between them. If you fight him, you fight me. Cade stared in shock. The warriors looked at each other, confused. Then one of them asked, why would you defend a creature like him? Sayari answered quietly, because for the first time in my life, something powerful chose peace instead of blood. Silence. Even the jungle held its breath. Then a voice crackled over a radio on one warrior's arm. Retreat. The Vorak is not the only threat now. Something else is moving in the deep jungle. The hunters vanished into the shadows as quickly as they came. Cade exhaled in relief. Sayari turned to Vorak and said softly, you didn't fight. You didn't run. You waited. She looked at Cade. That's not what monsters do. But just as things calmed, the ground trembled. A deep rumble rolled through the jungle floor. Birds flew from the trees. Vorak stood still, his nose in the air. Cade asked, what now? Sayari's voice was cold. Something ancient is coming. It started with a sound too low for humans to hear. But Vorak heard it. He lifted his head toward the sky and growled deep in his chest. His eyes glowed brighter than ever before. Sayari froze. Cade looked up. "What's wrong?" Vorak didn't. Moved. Then the trees bent with wind, not from a storm, but from something above. And in the next second, the clouds cracked open. 3 black ships broke through the atmosphere, silent and fast. They weren't like any Jalkai craft. They were darker, smoother, made of some unknown metal that shimmered like liquid shadow. Cade's eyes widened. "That's not our tech." Sayari's voice was cold. "Those are not ours either." Vorak's body trembled, not in fear, but in anger. He knew those ships. And they knew him. Far above, inside one of the crafts, an alien figure leaned forward. It had a thin neck, glowing blue eyes, and skin like cracked glass. It stared at the screen showing Vorak below. "Target acquired," it said. "1 Vorak alive. Confirm identity." Another voice replied from behind. "Confirmed. Blood signal matches royal pattern." The leader grinned. "Excellent. The lost prince is still alive. Begin retrieval. Kill the others." Back on the jungle floor, beams of light shot down through the trees. Sayari shouted, "Move." Cade grabbed Vorak's side as a blast hit the ground near them, throwing dirt into the air. They ran. Branches snapped. The jungle lit up with beams and flashes. Trees exploded. Creatures fled in every direction, but Vorak ran toward the fire, not away. "Cade, stop him!" Sayari yelled, but it was too late. Vorak jumped into the air and crashed into a drone, tearing it apart mid-flight. Sparks rained down as he landed like a thunderstrike. Sayari stared in shock. "He's fighting machines?" Cade nodded, eyes wide. "And winning." But more drones were coming, 10, 20 more behind. Sayari gritted her teeth. "There's too many. We can't stay here." Cade looked at Vorak. "What do we do?" Vorak turned and gave a loud, echoing growl. The ground responded. From the jungle, other creatures appeared, huge beasts with tusks, snakes with glowing heads, panther-like animals with bone armor. They didn't attack. They stood behind Vorak. Sayari stepped back, stunned. "They're answering his call." Cade whispered, "He's not just strong. He's a leader." The enemy ships sent more drones, but Vorak led the charge. Jungle beasts followed his roar, slamming into the machines. Cade fired his rifle beside Sayari. "They're targeting Vorak." Sayari threw a spear through a drone. "We have to protect him." In the sky, the alien leader frowned. "Too much resistance. Deploy the warden." A massive shape dropped from the ship, 10 feet tall, 4 arms, with spinning blades and glowing eyes. Cade saw it fall and shouted, "That thing's killer bot." Sayari pulled her second blade. "Then let's make it short." The warden landed hard. Trees snapped. The earth shook. It scanned the area. Vorak charged. The two clashed like titans, metal versus muscle, fire versus instinct. The battle was fierce. The warden slashed Vorak's side, drawing blood. Cade yelled in panic. But Vorak didn't fall. He roared, so loud the sky itself seemed to shiver, and slammed the warden into the ground with his jaws. Sayari ran to Vorak's side. "You're bleeding." But Vorak didn't stop. He limped, then stood tall, challenging the sky. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the ship above. "Stand down. This Vorak is protected. He carries royal blood. He belongs to us." Sayari looked at Cade, shocked. "Royal blood?" Cade blinked. "He's what?" Vorak growled softly and lowered his head. He was tired. Sayari whispered, "They didn't come to destroy him. They came to take him." Cade stepped between the beam and Vorak. "Over my dead body." But the ships began to pull back. The voice returned. "Another time, human. The jungle won't protect him forever." And with a flash the ships vanished. The jungle was quiet again. But nothing felt safe anymore. Cade knelt by Vorak, placing a hand on his blood-soaked shoulder. "You okay, buddy?" Vorak gave a soft grunt and leaned his heavy head on Cade's. Sayari stood beside them, holding her spears, staring at the stars. "They called him a prince," she whispered. Cade nodded. "That means he's more than a creature." Sayari looked down at him. "It also means the next time they come, they'll bring a war." The jungle burned, not with fire, but with warning. The animals had vanished. The trees stood quiet. Even the rivers had slowed, as if the world was holding its breath. High above, the stars were blocked by ships, enemy ships hovering like vultures in the sky. And at the heart of it all stood Vorak. Bigger, stronger, no longer just a creature. He stood like a general, his body covered in scars, his eyes glowing like twin red suns, and beside him were his two defenders, Cade, the human who raised him, and Sayari, the alien princess, who once hunted him. The jungle tribes had gathered Julkai warriors, beast riders, and hunters. Some feared Vorik. Others bowed to him. Cade stood before them all. "He is not your enemy," he said. "He is your protector. And soon you'll see why." Sayari stepped forward, her voice loud and clear. "A war is coming. Not between us, not between man and beast, but from the sky, from those who once tried to erase the Vorak bloodline." An elder asked, "Then why defend the creature?" Sayari looked at Vorak and said, "Because this creature saved my life, twice." Then came the thunder. The war had begun. Enemy ships dropped machines from the sky, battle drones, walking tanks, and soldiers in black armor. They moved fast, burning paths through the trees. Cade raised his rifle. "Positions!" Vorak roared a sound so deep it seemed to come from the earth itself. Beasts answered his call. Hundreds of them. Panther beasts leapt from trees. Horned rhinos stampeded through the mud. Flying lizards screamed from above. This wasn't a battle. It was a rebellion. Sayari led her warriors with sharp eyes and two glowing spears. She moved through the battlefield like wind, fast, fierce, never stopping. Cade fought back to back with Vorak, shooting drones and shielding villagers. But the enemy kept coming. More ships. Bigger machines. One of them released a creature made of metal and bone, tall as a tower, with 6 legs and a spinning core in its chest. It targeted Vorak. Sayari yelled, "That thing will kill him." Cade ran forward. "Vorak, watch out." The giant machine fired a blast of energy that threw Vorak through 2 trees. Cade screamed, "Nitrogen monoxide!" The beast lay still. Smoke rose from his side. Blood hit the ground. Sayari rushed to him, falling to her knees. "Cade," she whispered, "he's not moving." The metal monster stepped closer, charging another blast. And then something changed. Vorak opened his eyes, but they were no longer red. They burned gold. He stood. Every scar on his body glowed. His muscles shifted. His tail snapped like a whip. Opened his mouth, and from it came a roar like no other. It wasn't just sound. It was a signal, a command from the deep jungle. Even older creatures came. Hidden beasts thought to be extinct. Giants, serpents, armored animals that crushed machines. Under their weight, the sky turned dark with wings. Cade watched in awe. "What's happening to him?" Sayari whispered. "The bloodline. It's awakening." The enemy leader on the ship above screamed, "Too late. We must retreat." But Vorak wasn't done. He leapt straight into the sky, higher than any beast should. He crashed into the enemy ship, tearing into it fire and fury. The ship exploded in midair, lighting up the jungle. The others followed, retreating fast. The battle ended. The war was over. Smoke floated through the trees. Fires burned low. Bodies, both metal and flesh, lay across the ground. Sayari stood with her warriors, bruised but proud. Cade sat beside Vorak, who rested quietly, chest rising and falling. He placed a hand on Vorak's back. "You did it." "Buddy," Sayari approached. "He didn't just win a war. He became a legend." Cade nodded. "He was never meant to be a weapon." Sayari looked around. He was meant to lead. Then one of the jungle elders stepped forward. He knelt before Vor Rak. Followed by others. They all bowed, not to a human, not to a warrior. But to the king of the jungle. 3 days had passed. The war was over. The jungle had begun to heal slowly. Birds returned to the trees. The rivers flowed again. Smoke no longer filled the air. But something had changed forever. The name Vorak was now spoken with both fear and respect. He had not just survived. He had won. And in doing so. He had united beasts, humans, and aliens for the first time. Cade sat on a large stone beside a calm river. His arm was bandaged. His eyes looked tired, but peaceful. Beside him, Vorak rested in the shade, his breathing deep and steady. The once small creature was now huge, his body full of strength and wisdom. But to Cade, he was still his friend. "I didn't raise a pet," Cade whispered. "I raised a protector." Behind him, footsteps. Sayari walked forward, her armor scratched but her eyes clear. "He's sleeping like a baby," she said. Cade smiled. "He deserves it." Sayari sat beside him. There was silence between them, but a peaceful kind. No fear, no swords, no war. "I spoke to the tribal council," Sayari said. "They want me to return." "To lead," Cade nodded. "You are there." "Princess, you earned it." Sayari didn't answer right away. She looked at Vorak. The council also said ... The Vorak should be caged, watched, controlled. Cade frowned. "After everything?" Sayari's voice turned cold. "That's how they've always been. They fear what they don't understand." She stood, turning away. "If I go back, they'll use me to control him. Or worse, use me against him." Cade asked quietly, then, "What will you choose?" Sayari looked up at the trees, green, wide, endless. "I once believed strength was power. That killing monsters made me strong. But now..." She looked back at Cade. "I saw a beast show more mercy than kings. I saw a human fight harder than any tribe. I saw peace born in blood." She smiled softly. "I choose to stay." Cade looked surprised. "You'd give up your crown?" Sayari nodded. "A crown means nothing if it sits on a throne made of fear." She turned to Vorak and knelt beside him. He opened one eye and let out a soft grunt. Sayari placed her forehead gently against his. "You are not a monster," she whispered. "You are the balance this world needs." Later that evening, Cade, Sayari, and Vorak stood on a high cliff overlooking the jungle. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and red. Below, thousands of creatures, beasts, birds, and people gathered near the ancient stone grounds once used for battle. But now, it was a place of unity. Sayari held up her hand, speaking to the crowd. "The one you feared is now your shield." She pointed to Vorak. "He will not rule with claws or flame. He will lead with strength, ... and peace." The crowd roared in support. Cade stood beside her, looking down at the people. "What happens next?" Sayari smiled. "We build a new jungle. One where trust is stronger than bloodlines." Vorak gave a deep growl, and from every corner of the forest, beasts howled back. The jungle had accepted its new guardian, and so had its people. That night, under the stars, Cade asked one last question. "Do you think he'll ever stop growing?" Sayari laughed. "Not a chance." Cade grinned. "Good, let them come next time. He'll be ready." And so it began. A new age. A jungle with a king, a warrior princess, and a human who believed in something the galaxy had forgotten. Compassion can create legends, even if they begin as something small inside a crater.